Hello, everyone. It is March 11th, 2020. I hope everybody is doing well. I see we already have a few people in here. Who was first tonight? Gail. Gail got in first. I see you, Gail. And Concha and Carrie and Laura and Christine and Susan and Anne and Jasmine and Heather. Hello, Heather, with the hands. And another Laura and Carol and Katie. Hello, everyone. Cherie, CB, what's going on? And Tanya. Thank you all for making time tonight, this Wednesday, to see what I'm going to talk about and what we're all going to discuss. I'm going to be taking some questions and all sorts of the good things we usually do on this program. Of course, the last few weeks, this live show has been running very long, like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, something like that. I don't know how long it'll go on tonight. It'll go until it's over. But in the meantime, while you are watching, I hope that you will remember to hit the little thumbs up here. Of course, in my screen, it's up here. It's like right there. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up for this video so it can show up on any searches that people do for true crime or live streaming, anything like that. Because Natasha, the person that manages the YouTube channel now, is making sure that all of these videos get properly tagged. So anybody that goes onto the internet and looking for whatever, they may find the video. And what she does is she tags these videos with topics that we cover on this show. So who else is in here? Laura had a birthday on Sunday. Happy birthday to you, Laura. And Kathy coming in from North Carolina. Oh, excellent. Today it was a beautiful, beautiful, hello, Indy, day here in Clearwater Beach. I mean, the Gulf, no wind. It was like glass out there today. Hardly any waves, hardly any surf. And maybe some of you know that this is one of the weeks for spring break. I think that Pinellas County School District goes on spring break next week, but I know for a lot of colleges out there and universities, this is the spring break season. So it does seem that we have a few more young people out on the beach, and I was out today, a few more young people on bikes or whatever than I usually see around, this time of year. Of course, it's not summer. So that's what's going on here. You probably also know that Clearwater Beach is a very popular destination for spring break kids, students, and late teens, early 20s. Clearwater Beach is a very popular destination for them. A lot of different places in Florida that they go. Daytona Beach, maybe down to Miami, Panama City Beach up in the Panhandle. But I think coming to Clearwater Beach is a safe bet because it's going to be at least decently warm, and it was very nice today. Whereas up in the Panhandle in March, it can still be a little chilly. So that's what's going on here. Who else has come in here? Kathy. Hello, Doris. I'm glad to see all of you in here tonight. And once again, just reminding you, if you could hit the thumbs up for this video while you are watching, I would appreciate it. Going to cover an array of topics. Got some questions. But where I want to start off is something that happened to me yesterday. Maybe many of you already saw it because I posted a picture on the Unfound page and in the group. Yesterday morning, I have a disc golf tournament coming up this weekend in Brooksville, which is about an hour and a half north of here, at a course that is only open for 1 month of the year, the month of March. And the reason that is because it's on private property, and the person that organizes the event only rents the property for 1 month so disc golf can be played on it. The other 11 months of the year, if you can imagine, it is a cow pasture. And yes. But what it used to be like way back, like 75 years ago, is it was actually a rock quarry where they would go in and take the stone out, and those stone was helped to, make roads and all sorts of other things around Florida. And then at some point, that quarry shut down. It was sold. The land is now private. And in the early 2000s, a guy who I happen to know, although I haven't seen him in a while, got the idea of playing disc golf on that property and got permission. He ran it for a few years and then decided not to. And then in 2013, another guy, his name is Mike Barnett, he decided to start to see if he could start holding tournaments there again, bringing in his own baskets and everything else. And the property owner said yes. So now, March of every year, a tournament over 3 weekends, 3 different groups of people play over 3 weekends in the month of March. And I will be playing this weekend, 1 round on Saturday, 1 round on Sunday. And because the course is only open for 1 month of the year, and what I mean open is that Mike, the tournament director, he brings in his own baskets and he arranges everything. He gets everybody signed up. And then when he's done, he takes the baskets and everything with him. So if you were to go up there in like August, you'd never know that if you didn't know, you'd never know that it doubled as a disc golf course for 1 month of the year. Hello, Suzanne. So it's a very special tournament here in Florida. It's very unique. It has a lot of downhill shots, uphill shots, very unique to Florida, and it's a very unique course. And then next week, and a lot of professional touring pros will be here for the tournament that's going to be held there next weekend. Well, I went up there yesterday morning to practice. I got up first thing, the course opened up at 9 a.m. I think I got there at about 9:30, and I hadn't played the course since I think 2014. So it's been like 6 years. Never played any of the tournaments, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Didn't play. But I am playing this year. So thank you, Christine. And so I wanted to go up there and check everything out. And the other good thing is that you can see this course online. If you were to go to YouTube, where we are right now, and do a search for Throw Down the Mountain Disc Golf, you would see videos of that course and players playing on it. Throw Down the Mountain, and just I'll type it out so you want to check it out. There you go. If you were to do a search for that on YouTube, you would see men and women playing this course. And it's, like I said, it's an hour and a half north of here. Where I went up there to play, I just wanted to get in there, check everything out, see how I'm playing, and see what put a little plan together and get out of there like in an hour and a half. Whereas some people are going to go up there and maybe play every day or at least spend the day there. I just wanted to get in and out in like 2 hours because I had stuff to do yesterday. And I was rushing through it, and I got to number 11. And basket 11 is way down this hill. You're up at the top of the quarry, what used to be the quarry, and then the basket is way down at the bottom of the quarry to the right. It's about 400 feet. And I was just playing by myself. There were guys up there that were in groups and everything, and I was just playing through, and they were letting me pass them up and everything because, like I said, I was in a little bit of a hurry. I threw a shot, and I guess what you'd call, though we don't necessarily call it this in disc golf, I had a hole-in-one. So 400 feet downhill, I threw this disc, went down, hit the ground at the bottom of this valley, at the bottom of this quarry, skipped to the right, went right into the basket. Could not believe it. I didn't even know it. And I finally get down there, and the guy, I didn't even know because you can't see the basket from where the tee is. You can't see it. It's down and to the right, way down there. I mean, way, way, way down there and to the right. You can't even see it. But I knew as soon as I let it go, it was a pretty good shot. And so I get down there, and, you have to walk this path the whole way down to the bottom, of the Corey. And these guys start telling me, yeah, you aced it. You aced it. The disc skipped and went right in, and there was my disc in the basket. Could not believe it. Just could not believe it. I mean, a lot of luck. It's a lot of luck. But it's a good one, and that's only my second ace ever. I had one over 7 years ago at a course called Maximo, which is down at the bottom of the most southern point of Pinellas County. It used to be very close to where I used to live. Now it's a little bit of a drive. But I had an ace down there in January 2013 when my dad was walking with me around the course and I was playing. He saw me get a ace on basket number 9 at Maximo. And aces in disc golf are easier to get than holes in one in ball golf. Certainly easier. And to think that I went 7 years between them, I don't know what to think about that. Many of my friends who've been playing, longer than I have, but not a lot longer. They'll have like 20 aces already or something. And I have 2. But I have to tell you, it was worth the wait. Certainly worth the wait. In fact, when I'm done, I will post a video of that whole basket in the group so you can see a video. A friend of mine did a drone footage of that basket going from the tee and going down and right to the basket so you can see how far it is away, and how much the drop off. I'll post that in the group after we are done here tonight. But just so improbable, just completely improbable. Now, probably when I go play there this weekend, when it counts, who knows who knows what's going to go on. But it was special. It was worth the wait. I was like, I've been playing better and really feeling a lot better about my game in the last few months, even though I've had some bad rounds too. But really, I was like, you know what? I'm finally finding my game after 4.5, 5 years of really stinking it up. And hello, LaFord. And it finally came to a culmination yesterday, because that's one of those aces that you can brag about. There aren't too many, not even pros out there, who have 400-foot aces. It's 400 foot, pretty far. And it's just cannot believe it. Just really, and my buddy Cameron, he saw the picture posted in this disc golf group, and now a lot of people know what I did, and they were congratulating me and everything else, and it feels real good. It feels real good on top of just knowing that I did play real well on that course yesterday. I mean, that was not the only great shot that I threw yesterday. That just happened to be the only one that went in the basket on the first throw. So we'll see how it goes this weekend. I know I'm going to be nervous, and who knows, I'm not making any promises this weekend. But you can't, now that I got that ace, you can't take that away from me. I certainly have a longer ace than probably anybody I personally know now, which is something to brag about. But it was good. It was really good. And, a good thing it's one of those things where I'm glad I had witnesses, because had I not had any witnesses and it happened, I don't think anybody would believe me. That's how improbable, that's how hard a shot it is, that's how far it is. But there were like 4 or 5 guys right down there near the basket when it went in. In fact, they told me, one of them says I almost hit him. Whoops. But they were right there at the basket when the disc went in. So they're my witnesses. They signed the disc. Because otherwise, if I'd have been out there and nobody else was out there and that happened, nobody would believe me. Nobody. So I'm glad I had the witnesses. But thank you all, Gail, Katie, Suzanne, Doris. Thank you, Concha. DK says, buy a lotto ticket. Yeah. Hello, Carrie. Yeah, thank you, all of you. It feels really good. really good. And I knew it was a good throw as soon as I let it go. Went straight down, really nice, right down this little valley toward the bottom, really flat, really straight. And I was like, all right, that's a really good shot. I didn't know it was that good. So it was all good. What a special day yesterday. Really good day yesterday. So there you go. But like I said, only had one other one, and the other one was like 278 feet, something like that. 278 feet was the other race, which is still a pretty good distance. Pretty good. All right, let's move on to some other things. Let's talk about the April Andrews poll. Of course, that was last Friday's episode. And an overwhelming majority of you, at least in the group, believes that April's mother, Tina, caused her disappearance. That, of course, makes a lot of sense. It's hard for me to argue with that, but I have to admit that the problem that I have with thinking that I'm not saying she doesn't know eventually what happened, but the problem I have, pointing the finger at her as the instigator and is because I would have thought if she did it, that she would have come up with a better lie than April went, to this church. A lie that could so easily be proven to be, a statement that so could easily be proven to be untrue. That's just my personal idea regarding it. I can't say that if I would have voted in my own poll that I would have picked the same one that a large majority a majority did. Second was the boyfriend, the guy that was living in the same apartment complex. I'm more inclined to believe that. And then even a smaller percentage was that she was abducted by a stranger, which certainly is possible. That's always possible. If it can happen in Jacob Wetterling's disappearance from many years ago, then it certainly could have happened to April. Certainly. Not as common as parents and stepfathers and stepmothers. Of course, we know recently with Gannon Stock and what happened there. Not as common as guardians or parents causing the disappearance of children, but abductions by strangers do happen. But had I voted in my own poll, I would have probably picked the boyfriend just because. But I can totally understand why a large majority of people picked Tina. I think for a lot of reasons. She didn't seem like a very good parent. What she said about April going to the church, how she didn't let any of her family know for like a year. Lots of circumstantial reasons to believe that she could have been the primary cause of the disappearance. Surely. So I'm not saying the majority that picked that are crazy. That's just probably not the way I would have picked had I done it. Carrie says if the mom didn't do it, she knows all the details. I'm inclined to think that way as well, Carrie. So that was what the poll was for the April Andrews disappearance from last Friday. I thought that Tanya, my guest, did a really, really good job in doing the interview. But I think also, as I stated in the summation after the interview, I think you can see why we do not actively, vigorously try to cover child disappearances. And that's why I did the summation the way I did. They're very difficult to do for the reasons that I've already stated many times on this show and then in the summation after the interview. They're very difficult to do. You don't know what you can believe. Yeah, forward. Hello, Emily. I didn't know you were in here tonight, Emily. Good to see you. Let's move on to a question since I know that Antonia is in here tonight. So I feel like I have to take her question first, being that she took time out of her evening to not just ask a question, but take time to watch this live show as well. What's Carrie? 100 and some cases. Unfound has covered what, 3 kids' cases? Maybe a couple more than that, Carrie, but not. I'm thinking Kimberly Norwood, Evelyn Hartley, who was still in high school, April Andrews, Debbie Lowe. Those are a few that come to mind right now. I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm just gonna let me take a quick look. Oh, we got of course Mikhail Biggs. We just toward the end of last year, of course, we covered the disappearance of Brandy Myers. So we've done a few, but considering 170 disappearances, maybe you've only done 6, 7, or 8. I think that speaks for itself. Yeah, not many. Danielle Bell, that's another one. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, not many, considering how many. Lauren Ashley, yes, that's ones too. So yeah, we're getting up there like 8 or 9, 7, 8, 9, but it's not even 10%. 17 would of course be 10%. All right, let's move on to Antonia's question. What can the public do to end disappearances? That's how I wrote it. Now let me. That's how I put it in my notes. But let me read it word for word here from Antonia. Antonia said, "I'm boggled by the amount of people that go missing every day, even though most eventually are found. What are some proactive steps we can take as a society to end disappearances?" Now, from a public standpoint, so Antonia, when you're asking me about the public, people who haven't had disappearances happen in their family, the biggest thing I would say is the public needs to understand the facts regarding missing persons cases. I think that the public does not have an accurate view of disappearances. They know about them, certainly, but I think that they think that they're not as common as they are. Even the true missing persons cases where people end up being, missing for weeks, months, years, are not that common compared to all of the reports that are filled out. But I think the public perception, at least people who maybe don't listen to this program or other programs like it, or watch Disappeared or other programs, TV shows, the public, I think, believes they're a lot less than they even are. I think the public thinks that when they see a news story about a missing person and they see one this month and then like another one the next month, they think, oh, nobody else disappeared in that time, which of course we know isn't true. And, even though I've been doing this for over 3.5 years now, I'm not sure why some cases get a lot of attention and others don't. But because of that, because some do get a lot of attention and others don't, the public perception is that, well, when a disappearance happens, the public hears about it, and if they don't hear anything about a missing persons case, then none are going on. That's the first way to start lowering the number of disappearances that happen. The public has to have a more accurate idea of how common they are, even though statistically, compared to other types of crimes and things, they aren't common. But they're much more common than the public believes. That's my impression. The other thing I think the public thinks is that when they do hear about missing persons cases, that it just falls into a few categories. Children, old people with Alzheimer's, people with, domestic violence as Cherie is saying. And anybody, or drugs, anybody who doesn't have those issues, if you're not a child, if you're not really, really old, if you're not in an abusive relationship, if you're not doing drugs, then I think the public thinks, well, you can't go missing. And that's not true either. Now, of course, as I've stated many times, relationships are the number one driver of missing persons cases. I don't think the public knows that. They may know that domestic violence can be a factor, but I don't think the public could ever guess that it's the number one factor. It's, in fact, you can go through all of Unfound's cases and see that in most instances, when you look at the missing persons cases that we've covered, the main suspects are, and we have good reason to believe, even though a lot of it's circumstantial, that boyfriend, that girlfriend, that husband, that ex-wife, whoever, is probably most responsible. But I don't think the public knows that, even though they probably could guess that, yes, men do make women go missing. So there's that. I think that the way we lower the number of people going missing is from a public standpoint. Once again, people who have never had a missing persons case happen in their family, is that they need the right information. That's part of it. Let me just look at some of these things first of all. DQ says Kevin Wynn disappeared from Fort Wayne. DQs, if you want to send me or Emily any information on that, we'll certainly take a look at it. August, hello, how are you? Emily says, I try to make sure someone knows where I am, especially when I'm traveling, someone knows where I am. Yeah. And Emily, I know you do a lot of traveling between Texas and Arkansas. Carrie says, one of my speech assignments I did was over NamUs. My professor was astounded at the numbers I gave and the number of entries. Yeah. Kathy says, yes, my parents raised me to always be accountable wherever I was going. Carrie, several family members can track me in real time on Google Maps every 4 years because of my little traveling heart. August Ed, do you ever encounter prospective interviews who back out due to fear of repercussions from unsavory types or where who were associated with a missing loved one? Yes. Can't talk about who those people were, August, but that has happened. Yes. Yeah. Emily, when I travel back from my dad wants to know every time I get to a different city, if I don't answer in the amount of time he thinks I should, he blows my phone up. Cherie says, women make men disappear too. That's certainly true. And of course, the disappearance that I think of right away is one that we covered last summer, Jonathan Estes, is one that comes to mind. So you're right, Cherie. But, those are just a few things that I would say from a public standpoint, Antonia. Now, from a family standpoint, if there are people in your family who are going through some of those things, domestic violence, drugs, or if you think you have children in your family from a cousin or, there may be, abusive relationships and these things, then you need to keep an eye on them a little more than you would anybody else. You need to know that it can happen. It can happen anytime. And this is why the first thing I say, but this is what I think I know, is that if you have a missing person, if somebody goes missing in your family, the first thing you do, even before you call the police, even before you file a missing person report, you start writing down all the people that you think would have wanted to cause that person to go missing. I don't care if it's 2 people. I don't care if it's 10 people. You write them all down. And then you call the police. And you give the police the whoever takes the information. I have reason to believe one of these people could have caused my loved one to go missing, and you give the reasons, and you instruct the police to find out where their alibi was at the time your loved one went missing. It has to be done then, in those first 24 hours, because if you wait a week to do that, nobody ever can remember where they were. And if the suspects can create lies that can't be, sometimes can't be proven to be untrue. That is the first thing you do. Now, if it turns out that the person reappears, then everything is fine. Then everything's fine. But it's those first few minutes when you find out, you start writing names down. I don't care if the person was into drugs or not, they are in relationships or not. I don't care. The first thing you do is make a list of people, and you try to figure out where those people were at the disappearance time. That's what you do. That's what I would say to families who have some of the things going on that I've already mentioned. But with the public, where I was going with that is the public doesn't realize that anybody can go missing at any time. And I think that with the rise of suicides, at least in the United States, and the rise of addiction to non-illegal drugs like opioids that are illegal, they have to have prescriptions and a prescription abuse and all of that. That number of people who you wouldn't expect to go missing is going to continue to rise. Because of suicides, the suicide rate is way up in the United States over the last 50 years. The addiction rate is way up over the last 50 years. Those two facts contribute to missing persons cases, no doubt in my mind. So, and the other tough part about that is that many times, we have lots of friends and we don't know what's going on in their heads. We don't know what they're addicted to. They may seem fine on the outside. They got this great facade going on, but underneath, they're struggling with all sorts of things. They might be a meth head. You just don't know. So, that also, I think, contributes to the public not, completely understanding everything about missing persons cases. Emily says, we'd had people that wanted to be interviewed, but they didn't want to mention certain things or names. That's true. Emily also says, without saying certain things and certain names, there isn't anything to say except this person is missing. That's true too. Carrie say, I will preface that with, if it is a child or elderly, don't wait, call 911. You can write as you wait for law enforcement to arrive. Kids and elderly get themselves in heavy commits quick. Great advice. I hope it never great information. I was looking for more of educating the public perspective. Well, the public needs, like I said, the public needs educated, and I'm trying to do that. I'd like to think that people who have been listening to Unfound since day one are much more educated about disappearances than they were in 2016. Now, I don't know if, for listeners of other programs, they are getting the same type of education. But I think I'm doing my part. As with any education, Antonia, it's a two-way street. The person who is giving out the information has to want to teach it. And the person out there who is supposed to be taking it in has to be taking it in. So, it's just not as simple as telling people things. That you also have to convince them that it's important to know these things. And so I think that there are a lot of poor teachers out there, and frankly, there are a lot of poor students out there. But that I've told you what it's going to take. And I'm just trying to do it as well as I can, and trying to build the audience, and trying to educate people every time they tune into the program. This is not an entertainment show. This is a news show. This is an education show. if you want to call it a show program. This is an education program. It's an information program. It is not an entertainment program. Cherie says there has to be a balance, yes, between teachers and students. Antonia, absolutely. I've already learned so much since finding your podcast in November. Thanks for finding it. Carrie says you have to find a way to make that education interesting, pull them in fast and hold attention or they will block it out. Yep. Yep. I guess what I'm saying, Carrie, is my impression is that there's not a lot of not much of an attempt at education out there. It's just all entertainment based and not education based. There are obviously a lot of programs that are good from a standpoint of covering a disappearance, whether they're just reading off of Wikipedia or whatever. But what are you supposed to learn from that you can apply to all these other cases over here? And that's, it's what I try to do. The building blocks of education. It's no different than you go from math to algebra to geometry to trigonometry to calculus to physics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I'm trying to do. I think that maybe a lot of other programs out there just want to stay at the math level. So there you go. Let's move. I will come back to questions in a bit. Let's talk about the speaking stuff, and you're just going to have to get used to the speaking stuff because I'm going to keep talking about it until these engagements happen. April 2nd, Northwestern State University. April 2nd is a Thursday. I'm going to be doing 2 1-hour and 15-minute presentations to 2 classes at Northwestern State University. One, I think the class is at 9:30, and then one is 11. So it's like 9:30 to 10:45, and then 15 minutes later, another one from 11 to 12:15. I think that's how it works. Not sure how big these classes are going to be. I think they're going to at least be like 20 to 25 students each, which is a good size. And I'm going to videotape it. I'm going to video it. Shouldn't use the word tape anymore because we don't use tape anymore. I'm going to video it with my phone. I'm going to bring my tripod. I'm hoping my brother is going to be coming with me so he can kind of supervise while I'm speaking and make sure everything is going correctly and nothing bad happens. The phone doesn't give out or something. And what I'm going to be doing in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about the difficulties of investigating missing persons cases, what I've been told by guests on the program, and also the confidants that I have behind the scenes. And then I'm going to apply those difficulties to cases that Unfound has covered. So, and the professor of these classes, I've already given her the outline. She's very excited about it. And so that's what's going to be going on for that presentation. And I will be practicing my speech or presentation or whatever you want to call it. It's not a speech because I hope to have some, back and forth with the students. I'm going to be practicing that, of course, between now and April 2nd. It's no different than I may be doing one of these shows on Wednesday nights, but instead I'll be up in front of a bunch of people. So that's going to be what's going on April 2nd. Let me just catch up on what some of you are writing. August, Emily, a cousin of mine disappeared around 10 to 12 years ago, and his immediate family, in your opinion, is reluctant to go beyond the police to find him because of the people he hung with. Sure. Thank you, Carrie. Kathy says, I recently listened to Ashley Eifert interview. It seems a lot of trust was put into Nicole. Did anyone ever verify if she actually had a baby who died? Well, I found her, and this Nicole person, Kathy, and I passed that along to Ashley's mother and Yvonne passed that information on to the police department responsible for Ashley's disappearance. I can't tell you if she had a baby who died. I don't know. But I did find her. And you should know that this Nicole did have a criminal record, not a long one, or it wasn't anything violent or anything, but she did have a few things on her record. I don't know what that means, but she does. But eventually did find her. Must have been maybe last summer that happened, and I passed that along to Yvonne. But I know where you're going with this, Kathy, and I have to say that it's crossed my mind many times as well as it has crossed Ashley's mother's mind. Kathy says, Kathy, I don't think Nicole had been pregnant. Sounded like it was a ruse. Okay. Susan, so many colleges is suspending in-person classes and going to distance learning. I hope you'll still be able to present. Well, we're going to get to that because I did have a question about the coronavirus tonight, Susan. I'll answer it. LaFord, yeah. Okay. So that's the first one, April 2nd, which is a Thursday. Then the very next Thursday, a week later, so I'm going to go up to Louisiana. Then I'm going to come back. And then the next weekend, so I'm going to go from the Northwest to the Southeast to go to Nova Southeastern University down near Miami, Fort Lauderdale, down in that area. And I'm going to be interviewed. I'm not going to be doing the interview. I'm going to be interviewed. And it's going to be playing on Facebook Live on the Nova University Facebook page. And Dr. Grace Telesco we're going to talk about missing persons cases. And I've been told it's going to be an hour-long show. And there has been talk between Dr. Telesco and myself about maybe making this a monthly thing. So that would be interesting. We'll see. Who knows? But we'll see how it goes. And I'm excited to do that. So that will not be a presentation in front of students or anything. But from what she told me, she is going to make this interview part of the curriculum. So the students are going to be required to watch it. So that's kind of fun. But we are going to be discussing a disappearance that Unfound is covered. She wanted me to pick one out, and I want you to know that I did pick one out. And I'm going to give you the reasons for picking this particular one. Let me just see what some people are saying here. Emily says, talking to August, that has happened. I had a case I wanted to cover. I got in contact with the person's cousin. They wanted to be on the show, but didn't want to release certain information. I think I know which one you're talking about, Emily. Emily continues, we didn't get to cover the case because she refused to release certain things and names. Yeah. Yeah. Carrie says, I'm trying to couple seat criminal justice professors locally for you. Thank you, Carrie. That would be awesome. So April 2nd and then a week later, April 9th, both of those are Thursdays. And the April 9th Facebook Live show will be at 7 p.m. Eastern. And the case, like I said, the case that we are going to discuss is Dorianne Myers. You know how I do not like to put any one case in front of another one. All of the cases, disappearances are the same to me. I don't care when they happened or why they happened or who it happened to or anything. I do not have a top 10 list. I don't have a most interesting list. I don't have a most suspicious list. I don't have it. But the reason I picked Dorianne Myers was for the following reasons. First of all, it's a Florida disappearance, and being that I'm going to be doing an interview with somebody who is an educator in Florida, I thought that was important. Second of all, Dorianne disappeared from Vero Beach, which is over on the Atlantic coast of Florida, where this university is. Third, and this is maybe the most important reason, is that there is now, because Donna Jean, her sister, Dorian's sister, died back in October, the guest from last summer. She died of an ailment in October of last year. And unfortunately, I didn't even find out till a month later, and I still feel really bad about that. Dory does not have her number one spokesperson anymore. And I thought, well, the way we can make up for it is talking about Dorianne's disappearance, being that the spokesperson is no longer with us. And, myself and Dr. Telesco and everybody that's going to be watching it, they can become the spokespeople for Dory Ann's disappearance. The other reason, so I thought that was very important. The other reason, another reason that I picked Dory's case is because it has a lot of information, and it is one that I think is very solvable. And being that Dr. Telesco has 17, she's not just an academic working in university. She worked for NYPD for 17 years. And I thought that with a person with her experience and who else she knows, can look at all the information for Dory's case. We had a lot of pictures regarding Dory's disappearance. You remember their house was set on fire, her pets were killed, her car was stolen, then it was found and it was set on fire. And, there's a lot of information. There's the sketch of these two guys that were allegedly with her. There's a lot of information, and it all happened over there on that side of Florida. I'm on the Gulf Coast, but that's over on the Atlantic coast. And so all of those reasons put together is the reason I picked one. I had to pick one because that's what Grace, Dr. Telesco Grace, wanted to do. And really, it just came down to which one of these disappearances makes the most sense, given who I'm going to be talking to, where I'm going to be talking, and the context, and the venue, and the medium, and everything else. That's why I came to the conclusion for Dory Ann Myers. I hope no other guests feel left out. But that is my reasoning for that. If I was going to a university in Pittsburgh, then I would have probably picked one from Western Pennsylvania. If I was going to do an interview, for example, at Louisiana, at Northwestern State University, I would pick one from Louisiana that made the most sense. Texas, California, it wouldn't matter. I would try to pick one from that area that makes the most sense, given everything that is expected of me. So that's why I decided to go with Dory Ann's disappearance. So there you go. And what I'm hoping is that this becomes like what is going on with Suzanne Lyle's disappearance, where a bunch of students have now been, working on her disappearance for a couple years now, even at, maybe starting in 2017, maybe 2018. They've been digging into all sorts of things regarding Suzanne's disappearance. I'm hoping that there will be a similar group of students at Nova Southeastern that take that kind of interest in Dory's disappearance, being that it happened not far from where they're going to school. I'm hoping. So there you go. That's what will be going on April 9th for that discussion. I don't know how much we'll be talking about Dory's disappearance. It's going to be, it's only an hour. It's going to be a conglomeration, I'm sure, of different topics. And I'm sure if allowed, Dr. Telesco and I could probably go for hours, but I'm thinking it's just going to be an hour. So there you go. Let me get back to another question that has been asked. And this was from the Where Is Chip... hold on a second. Yeah, just want to make sure on that. And this question comes from the Where is Chip Campbell page. And I'm thinking, Lisa, I don't know if you will watch or not. Lisa, is this coming from you? But Where is Chip Campbell asked me, what is it like for these families? And let me ask, what is it like for families when loved ones disappear? Well, it's it's hard for me to answer that question, being that it's never happened to me personally. The only thing that I've ever happened in my life that could even come close to that would be my mother's death in November 2018. I was there. I was in the hospital room when they took her off all the machines. I sat there for not quite 6 hours until she passed away. I was there, just me and her. My dad was not there. That, and I was there for the last breath. I heard the machine, go flatline. Just everything that, if you've never experienced that, you maybe see it in a movie. It was just like that. And for those of you that have done that, you know how terrible it is. So that's the closest that I've come to in my life. And even I can say that's nothing compared to what these families go through. At least I know, why my mother died and all the things that happened. And I know where she is now. I know all there is to know about my mother not being here anymore. And it sucks. Her not being here sucks. But for missing persons families, they don't have those things. And in fact, you will hear in Friday's episode where, in talking to the missing man's daughter, the way I put it is, for missing persons families, it's like the day after the disappearance every day. Every day. No matter if it was last year or back in 2000 or 1990 or 1980 or, go back. It's like the day after they find out about the disappearance every day. That's me talking. I haven't ever put it, I've never had any guest put it that way, but that's how I would explain it to them. They always feel the same pain, unlike when it comes to, death is a part of life. And I'm not saying that time heals all wounds or anything like that. I know that people have lost, children, to cancer or whatever else. I know that those people are never quite the same, because my parents have friends who have lost children for car wrecks, and, those people are never the same. But even that, I think the disappearances are worse, what families go through with this. It's all the unanswered questions. That's probably the best way that I can put it. I think that their sanity is tested. I think their faith is tested. I think their trust in government and law enforcement and all of those things are all tested, and they're tested on an hourly, minute by minute, second by second basis. That's what I think. Because the problem is that, and once again, this is something that came up in the interview for this Friday, the world keeps spinning. Just because somebody went missing doesn't mean everybody stops what they're doing to figure out what happened. People keep living their lives. I mean, we've heard about it many times on Unfound, where a guy goes missing and he was dating a woman, and the woman is not a suspect in any way, shape, or form. She eventually moves on, ends up, meeting some other guy and getting married and having kids. But she's living her life, and the family of the missing guy's like, here we are all by ourselves. And that is common. And that's another part, the not knowing part, and the world keeps spinning part. So that's the best way I can answer that question. I think it's coming from somebody who knows exactly what it's like. So that person, I think it's can answer the question better than I can. But she's asking me, and that's my response, even though I've never personally felt it myself. In fact, one of the reasons I do the program is because it hasn't happened to me. And I feel like we, the people who have luckily not had to deal with this, we have an opportunity, we have a responsibility and an opportunity to give back. I don't know if I can give back in other ways when it comes to all the other bad things in the world, poverty, war, and all of that. I don't know if I can do much about any of those things, but I think I can do something about this. So there you go. What are you talking about here, Carrie? Carrie, my final exam speech, the quotes from families I did made my professor emotional. Wow, okay, Carrie. Final exam speech, I got a 98%. Wow. Okay. Well, remember what Billy Joel said, Carrie. If you're a straight A student, if you are, then you think too much. Just remember that. Tell you, when my father-in-law went missing, only a few weeks, it was horrific for all of us. Can't eat, can't sleep, just worrying and crying and praying every day. Yep. Now imagine doing that for years. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Christine says, some of your guests have made me cry. I feel so bad. It must be hard not knowing. It is. It is. Let's move on to some other things. Just a couple updates. Andrea Bowman, still no positive identification that the remains found on the Bowman property are Andrea's, although everybody I think believes it's hers. I think it makes all the sense in the world that they're Andrea's, but no official identification yet. Kathy has not sent me anything, has not posted anything, so I guess there hasn't been a positive ID. Why it takes so long? I have no idea. Speaking of which, Austin Pivo, I talked to his mother today. Still no word on his disappearance, even though remains have been found on the Fort Hall reservation there. She has gotten some news, but nothing official. I can't talk about it right at the second. She thought that she would have official word. At this point, she is not. So that's all I can say about that. Next Friday, I know I had talked about this. I thought it might be this Friday, but I'm going to make it next Friday. We are going to do an in memoriam for Crystal Morrison. That's going to be next Friday. No doubt about it now. For sure, for sure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the original episode with the intro and all of that and the interview. Of course, it'll be new Unfound news, but it will have the original interview I did with Crystal's sister Michelle, but then it will have new commentary at the end. And I will just blatantly talk about how myself in particular got that disappearance wrong and why I think I did and what I think I've learned since we covered Crystal's disappearance in 2017, how my thinking has changed regarding disappearances. Once again, going back to that education part, it's not just about me trying to educate all of you and other people. It's about educating myself too and getting smarter. And so in the summation, in my new summation, I'm going to talk about the mistakes that I made in my assessment of Crystal's disappearance. Because I'm not talking about that. There's no ego, there's no pride here. Zero. Zero. So I can certainly admit when I'm wrong. So that's going to be for sure next Friday. Crystal Morrison in memoriam, just like we did for Zoe Campos. So Cherie has the music notes going on. Talia, I can't imagine feeling like that for years. Yeah. Carrie says, I hope they continued to dig and not just stop because they found one set. I guess that means for Andrea Bowman. Emily says, I cried when I talked to Linda. That's going to be the guest for this Friday, the guest for the interview Friday. Yeah, Emily, yep. Carrie, do you think the students will listen to Dorian's episode before your talk? Karen, that's a good question. I talked to Dr. Telesco yesterday, and she asked me if I had a case picked out, and I did. And so I emailed Dr. Telesco today, this morning, all the information regarding Dory's disappearance, including a link to the episode. I know she's going to listen to it. I don't know how she's going to handle that, out of my hands. But I did send her all the pictures of the burned interior of the house, the pictures of the burned car, all the material that I accumulated in that eventually led to us covering that disappearance. So I'm hoping, I don't know what Dr. Teleska is going to do with that. That seems like a great idea. I don't know if she's going to do that or not. Carrie, when we stop being willing to learn and improve, we need to just stop. Our heart isn't right otherwise, is what Carrie says. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Now, we're going to get out of true crime here for a bit. I hope all of you can stand it. And by the way, while you're watching, don't forget to give this video the thumbs up. I know Christina is reminding everybody, so I'm going to remind everybody again. We got some people in here. We have much less thumbs up than we do viewers. So viewers who haven't hit the thumbs up yet, please do that. Before I take the next question, I want to remind you that about patreon.com/unfound podcast. I'd really like it if you'd consider supporting the program. Whatever level is fine by me, but I just want to remind you that if you contribute at the $12 a month level or above, you get, of course, quite a bit, including getting to be part of the think tank. And I think that $12 a month support is going to get even more valuable as I do some more presentations, and that I know that I'm going to do. Maybe not this semester, but coming this fall, because have some other discussions that are going to be happening soon, is that I'm going to try to videotape all of them. And for $12 a month and above Patreon members, they will have access to the entire presentation. Whereas I think everybody else will just probably have some clips, the probably maybe 5 to 7 minutes of clips. Whereas at the $12 a month level, you'll get to see the entire videos. Probably, like I said, come April, it's going to be 1 hour and 15 minutes long. Who knows how long some of these other presentations will be. So that's something else to think about regarding Patreon.com /unfound podcast. If it sounds if something like watching me do my presentation to a bunch of college students seems like something that might be interesting to you, you should probably think about joining on Patreon. You get to hear me on the episodes every Friday. You get to see me on this live show. And of course, it's two very different types of presentations. Well, you'll get to see a third, I guess, part of me, the teacher part. You get the interviewer part. You get the kind of laid back guy here on Wednesday nights. And then with getting to speak to college students, you'll get the hardcore teacher slash educator part of me. And I am of course really looking forward to that, although I know I'm going to be nervous. But you can get that at patreon.com /unfound podcast. If that's something, the think tank, all the blogs, some free ebooks. It's the best deal going in Patreon. The best deal has to be. Got to check it out. Patreon.com /unfound podcast. And thank you for giving me some more of those thumbs up. That amount is going up. All right. Tanya asked me, am I afraid of the coronavirus? The most direct answer is no. Now, it's easy for me to talk. I am a homebody. Doing what I do with Unfound, I can go for days and not be in the same room as another human being. That's true. I'm not exaggerating. Thank you, Cherie, for posting that. Because of me doing my work here at home, using the computers, doing interviews on the phone, doing everything that I have to do, over the internet, I could go for days without ever being in contact with anybody. And I don't mind people, but I don't mind not being around people either. I'm a very introverted person, even though you may not be able to tell that on here, but I'm very introverted. I'm a guy that very much is up in his own head most of the time. I got a lot of things going on up here. And it doesn't bother me to be alone for days at a time. Maybe that's the reason I'm single at 49 years old. But I can just sit here at home, do my work, even go out by myself, whether to a disc golf course or over here to this field to throw just by myself, and I am perfectly happy. Perfectly. So when it comes to my concerns about coronavirus, they're not as great as probably some other people, once again, because I'm not as around as many people as others are. I'm very, very rare in that regard. Having even said that, I think that a lot of this is hype. I'm not saying it's not dangerous. I'm not saying it hasn't killed people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But on the other hand, what I would say is this, and I'm no contagious disease expert, but I would say this. The truth is this: there are over 7 billion people on this earth. Over 7 billion. And this is a disease that, unlike AIDS, where you actually had to be in contact with somebody to get AIDS, which means it was harder to get. You couldn't just get AIDS by standing next to somebody. Whereas this is a virus that you can get just from casual interaction, shaking hands, things like that. And it still has only killed a very, 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 very small percentage of the entire world. Being that it's a communicable disease that people can get through just casual contact, and it's only killed this amount of people compared to the huge amount in the world, it's hard for me to worry about it. Like I'm saying, I'm not saying it's not deadly, but any disease is deadly depending on who gets it. And I've been having a discussion with one of my longtime friends, Dave, who I went to college with, one of my closest friends, Dave. And, we've been talking about this, and I just keep thinking about it, the same way. Is that if it was a really, truly, truly, truly deadly disease and communicable like it is, there would be thousands and thousands and thousands of people dead by now. But it's not. What I was saying to him is that what they don't tell you regarding all of this is that they don't give you the demographics of the people who are dying. I'm not saying it hasn't killed people, but if you're telling me that the disease is killing a bunch of 85-year-olds who have diabetes and heart problems, I feel horrible. But I wouldn't be that worried. However, on the other hand, if you're telling me that it's killing a bunch of 25-year-old healthy humans, then I'd be worried. But we don't know the demographics of the people who have died. I've heard that a couple doctors in China died, but just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you're healthy. We don't know what these doctors, they might have had underlying, problems already, and the virus got them. We just don't know. So I think a lot of what you're seeing now with this, like universities, like you're seeing like the NBA and the college basketball, March Madness, they're going to play games with no fans and everything. My personal opinion, all right, my opinion is these are just a bunch of people who are looking to avoid lawsuits should somebody get the virus. I think this is all legal stuff. I think there's probably, lawyers and these people. You know what's going to happen if, we know about this disease, and what's going to happen if, 15,000 people come to this game and then one of them gets the coronavirus. You're going to get sued when you could have shut this all down and protected everybody. That's what I think is going on. I just, once again, I will say this, if any of you are watching this or anybody that watches this later, if you have underlying health problems, none of my business what those are, none of my business. But if you've had underlying serious health issues, I'll just pick some things. Once again, diabetes, heart issues, lung issues, COPD, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then yes, I'm going to say probably you might need to be a little worried. I don't know how worried, but probably more worried than I am. But if you do not have those issues, then I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, Carrie. Yeah, yes. Charisse, 327 million people, not billion people. In the U.S., only 1,000 people have caught it. Yeah, well, and that's true. And the number could go up. It could go up to 10,000. It could go up to 100,000. It could go up to 1 million. But we have to remember something, that most humans are carrying around viruses and things anyway. Most people are carriers for diseases and they don't even know it, and most people don't catch it. Think about, like, not to get too dirty, not to get, too adult like here, but like HPV. A lot of people have it, show no signs, they'll never give it to anybody, nothing. And then there are other people who have it, and other people will get it. And of course it can, that disease, that virus can lead to other much more serious things. But I don't worry about it, and I don't think anybody out there should be that worried about it either. Cherie says, don't believe the hype. I agree. Christine, many people die every year from the flu. Antonia, I disagree, Cherie. There are only 1,000 people reported because lack of tests. Well, that's reported. All I care about is deaths. All I care about are the deaths. Because that is verifiable. Person's not here anymore. And there are over 4,600 deaths so far. It's all horrible. Every one of them is horrible. But I'd like to know who they are, and where they are, and I think my problem is that in the 21st century you have such a distorted idea about disease. It wasn't 500 years ago. What was a third of Europe or something died? A third or something, with the Black Plague or the bubonic plague. I mean, a humongous number of people, died back then. It was from what, rats or whatever. And here we are in the 21st century, where the medicine is better, the science is better, the technology is better, et cetera, et cetera. And we're all getting worried over on something that's not even as close to as dangerous. I'm just trying to keep it in perspective. Once again, if you have some health issues going on, then yeah. Otherwise, I think you just go about your day like anything else. One of my coworkers is totally freaked out about it. He thinks everything will eventually shut down. I wish he'd get a grip. Right, Rockstar. Hey, everyone, sorry I'm late. Hello, Tamara. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into the political side of this and all that. I'm just not going to do that. I'm just, being that I'm a human like the rest of you. I've gotten sick like the rest of you. I've gone out and gotten food, poisoning, from cooks who shouldn't have been at work, but they were because they can't afford to take off. And then you get food poisoning, and you get this and you get that. I've had viruses all like the rest of you. I mean, I had the flu or something so bad when I lived in Las Vegas that first year. I mean, I was seeing things. I was so sick. I was hallucinating. I was so sick. So I know what it's like to be sick. Just no. Dr. Fauci, this 10 times higher than the flu. I believe this will Totally overrun. I think this will be very bad, like Italy. Um, everybody is going to choose whether to be fearful of it or not, and I'm just not going to be phased by it at all. Carrie says we had a borderline fist fight at work over face masks. I guess that's my problem. Being that so many people want to fight about whether over it's lethal or not, and none of these people have any medical backgrounds at all, leads me to believe that this all is just a lot of hype. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a medical expert. I'm a missing persons expert. I'm just telling you how I personally think of it as a person. But once again, it's easy for me to talk. I'm a healthy guy and I don't go out much. I don't know. But it does seem to me there is kind of a polarity to this disease. It feels to me that it has become political, and I'm staying out of all of that because everybody has their own agendas. My only agenda is trying to think through it as logically as I can. And me personally, I am not worried about it. I went to get pizza today from a restaurant. I'm going to be in a disc golf tournament this weekend around a bunch of guys. I'm going to go to trivia tomorrow night where there's going to be, I'm sure, going to be a lot of people there. Not going to think about it for a second. Well, Antonia, I don't think it's a joke. I don't think it's a joke. It's killing people. Nothing that kills people is a joke. But I just think if it's an infectious disease and it's only killed 4,600 people, then once again, comparing it to real diseases that have killed people in prior human history, mm-mm. Um, 4 hours away is the closest we've had anything remotely possible. Our only problem in Australia, people panic buying toilet paper. I think media is blowing it up. Keep a healthy lifestyle. We should be fine. And telling us lots of people from lay people. Exactly, Tamara. It would not be like going out because people go missing. You know what? If everybody wants to stay home, it's fine by me. If people want to be fearful and be afraid that they're going to get sick, then they should stay home. They should just stay home. If you are a person who believe in the lethality of it and how dangerous it is and how it can kill people, then you should stay home. But if you don't believe that, then I would just keep going about your lives like you have. That's all I really want to say about that. Wanted to give a nice shout out to KETK in East Texas. They were very kind, and when they covered Kimberly Norwood's disappearance from 1989, that's a disappearance we covered back in 2018, I think. She disappeared on May 20th, 1989, right around the time that I graduated from high school from Hallsville, Texas. Well, this KETK in East Texas website, TV station, did some coverage of Kimberly's disappearance, and they were very kind in the story to link to the YouTube video, the podcast with pictures, the interview that I did with Kimberly's mother back in 2018. And so I wanted to give them a huge shout out. I think there is so much ripping off that goes on in the true crime community, people stealing other people's work and copying and everything else. I appreciate KETK doing the right thing and linking to our video. I'm not saying that I don't even know if they used any of our information for their particular coverage, but that they found the video online of that episode, and we're willing to link to it and everything. I thought that's very high class of them, and so I want to send a shout out to them for doing that. Thank you, deeply appreciated. I asked about this on the think tank on Sunday night, but I'm wondering if any of you had a chance to watch the coverage of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes' disappearances on the Oxygen show that came out, when was it, this past weekend? Just wondering, we're not going to get into a discussion here, but I just wonder what your opinions were of the coverage. I have to admit that given that there's so much that went on in that disappearance, that it's probably difficult for that it's already 2 disappearances, not 1, and to get that all done in 44 minutes, pretty tough. Pretty tough. I'm just wondering if anybody watched it and what they thought of the quality and everything else. The reason I ask is because the same show a few weeks ago covered Jodi Huisentruit's disappearance, and I was told that there were many mistakes in it. So I don't know. And it would seem to me in that kind of format of 44 minutes, it would be easier to cover Jodi's disappearance than Molly and Colt's disappearance, because it seems like there was so much more going on in Molly and Colt's. But that's just my opinion. So I'm just wondering if you watched it and what you thought of it and, the quality of it. I have not had a chance to watch it. Just a couple more things. Talia, I know you asked me a question about helpful tips to families. I think I kind of talked about that already and kind of answering Antonia's and question before. So I hope you will feel like I answered that for families. Number one thing when a family member goes missing, in my opinion, is figure out the people who would have wanted the person to disappear. Just a couple news items that caught my eye. There was a news story out of Boston, Massachusetts, about how Boston is in the midst of a 4-year span where they've had lower violent crime. This is regarding their transit system. That a lot of major police departments, New York City, Chicago, they have a police department within the police department that is just responsible for the transit authority, like buses and subways, etc. And the police department that's responsible for the transit authority in Boston is saying over the last 4 years, they've had some of the lowest crime in regards to the transit system they have had since they started keeping statistics. And this continues a theme that I've mentioned here on how we don't realize it, because, I'm 49 years old, and a lot of us, I think judge things on when we started to pay attention to the news, but if you go back and look at, the United States is a much safer place now than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. In fact, it's not even close. And it continues this downward trend. And that's a theme that I've been using for a while. And I just wanted to point that out. That's from the Metro Boston Transit Authority, these statistics over the last 4 years. It's the lowest crime in a 4-year span ever since they started keeping statistics in Boston, which, as you can imagine, probably is for decades. Frankly, the United States is just a safer place now than it used to be. I'm not saying bad things don't happen here. Bad things do. But I think that if we were in 1970 compared to 2020, I think that we would think about crime a lot different then than we do now. And I think that's why, crime as a topic for people running for office isn't as major a topic anymore as it was in the 1970s. You go back to the 1970s and you can do this on YouTube and elsewhere, and watch or listen to commercials, political commercials, way more talk about crime and everything than you'd ever hear now. One of the reasons is because violent crime in the United States is down. Um, BA Ed, people have to leave to work. Regarding coronavirus, I know. But if people truly believe that they could be costing themselves their life by going to work, if they truly believe that it's lethal, if I truly believed that, I wouldn't go to work. If I thought that going to work was going to cause me to possibly die, I wouldn't go. Surely me living is more important than me going to work. I guess what I'm saying is you either believe it's lethal, that coronavirus is lethal, or you don't. I personally do not, so I wouldn't miss work. Gail says she's staying home with her stockpile of toilet paper. Cherie says, I watched a little clip of the Miller Haynes show. Was enough for me. Okay, Cherie. Jasmine says she watched it. Carrie says she hasn't watched it yet. Suzanne says, I watched, but your podcast gave us so much more information, and that is one of the advantages of not having time constraints, Suzanne. Rockstar says that he or she watched it, thought it was well done. Okay. And Talia says that I did answer a question. Well, you're welcome, Talia. So, Boston Transit Authority, lowest crime in 4-year span ever. I also want to talk about one more thing, and once again, it's kind of what is crime related, but I don't know if you would call it true crime related. Harvey Weinstein got sentenced to 23 years in prison. And, of course, I think we all know that it was a long time coming. I'm not going to say I believe, there, of course, are a lot of women out there who have accused him of things. I believe most of them. I'm not going to say all of them because I know sometimes there are people, both men and women, that just want to get in on something because they think there might be a settlement or something involved. But I'm going to say I believe a vast majority of these women, and how he raped them and did all the things that they say he did. I personally, believe that. A lot of actresses have now come out and said how he ruined their careers when they would not sleep with him or do whatever he wanted them to do. A couple names that come to mind that I wrote down: Ashley Judd, Mira Sorvino. I mean, you have to remember, Mira Sorvino, Academy Award winner, father, famous actor, was on Law and Order, was in Goodfellas. I mean, everybody knows Paul Sorvino. And even she, with her Academy Award and her father being acting, even she, her career was ruined by Harvey Weinstein. Ruined. He put the word out that nobody should hire because he had so much power, at the time. And if you go onto Wikipedia and you look at the long list of actresses, models, and whoever, and every other, all different types of women in different careers who have said that he did things to them, I mean, it would take me 10 minutes to name all the names, to read the entire list. And you wonder how this could go on. And I guess there is something that we can learn in missing persons cases from this. And that is, and of course I think of it when I think about those missing persons cases where law enforcement might have been involved, and they say, well, they would never do that. Well, I'm going to say 25 years ago that a bunch of people would have said Harvey Weinstein would never do this. And I'm going to say even 10 years ago, because I think a lot of these women were afraid. They might not have known that there were other women that he did this to. They thought that, well, it's just me going up against this powerful Hollywood guy. They didn't know about all these other women because all these women, keeping their mouths shut for a variety of reasons. they didn't know that there were, so many. And then eventually, um, this big secrecy, kind of broke down. But, the problem was is that it was nobody in nobody's interest, to come forward. The women were worried about, because the women who did sleep with them, they got to have careers. The women who didn't, they got railroaded. And, it just, there were just too many people. I'm going to guess there were many, 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 many people who knew about this and kept their mouths shut because they wanted to stay close to Harvey Weinstein. They wanted to do this with him. They wanted to make this movie. There is no doubt in my mind. And it's all horrible. But it doesn't just happen in Hollywood. But it just shows you how people in powerful positions can continue to do bad things even when they're, screwing many people over. And it seems like it's so obvious. Why is this person in that position anymore? It's happening all the time. And I'm sure that there are men like him who have jobs right now, powerful jobs, are doing the same thing. And, and it's not public. Hello, Brandy. Gail says, good, he deserves more if he did those things. Gail says, they think they're untouchable, big bucks, everybody hush. Yeah, absolutely, Gail. Absolutely. But I do think that there's something can be learned from this. Is that we should not be so, easily deterred when we start thinking that a person in a powerful position, well, he or she would never do that because they have too much to lose and all this. And if they were doing that, everybody would know about it already. Well, sometimes not. So I don't get this. As a guy, of course it disgusts me. I don't want to put this. We know that there are men out there who have slept with a lot of women and it wasn't by force. Okay? We know that. We know that there are guys out there that are trying to meet women all the time and that happens. Fine by me. But did Harvey Weinstein, I guess the bizarre part about this is that did Harvey Weinstein really have to force himself on these women to get what he wanted from them? It tells me, of course, we know that rape is not about sex. It's about control. That's what rape is about. It's not about sex. It's about dominating a woman. It's about abusing a woman. It's about everything. The last thing it is about is the sex, the actual act. Which shows me that what he was doing with it wasn't about the sex. He is just, it wasn't that he was trying to get with these women because he wanted to have sex with them, like men want to get with women for that purpose. That wasn't it. He just wanted to abuse these women. It wasn't that he was interested in them because they were beautiful or whatever else. He wanted them so he could control them and just do whatever he wanted to them, because then they'd have to, put up with it. As Sheree is saying, he thought he could have whatever he wanted. Yeah. And when women resisted, that kind of, I guess, broke that facade that he created for himself, and then he retaliated. He took revenge on them. Whereas I think your average guy is like, well, you know what? If this woman doesn't want to go out with me, she doesn't want to have sex with me and everything, your average guy, although you may be sad and a little pissed off about it, gets over it. Harvey Weinstein, not so much. Horrible, horrible, horrible guy. And at one time, one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. Miramax, You go back and look at all those movies that they brought out in the 1990s, a crazy amount of great movies. And now ruined his life, ruined all these women's lives, and now he's ruined his own. And he deserves it. They did not deserve it. He deserves it. All right, let's move on to, we're once again a long show tonight. This Friday, Bill Cosby, sad men in powerful positions do crap like this thing. Gail, I feel the same thing. Did Bill Cosby really need to slip sleeping pills into women's drinks to get them into bed? Or was it about something else? I think that I apologize if any children are listening tonight, but we're all adults here. We know that adults sleep around, even if they're married. And you would not think that Bill Cosby, with his fame and seemed like a decent guy and everything else, funny and everything else, that he would have to slip sleeping pills into women's drinks to get him into bed. That's why I said it must have been about something else. Must have been about something else. Like I said, as a guy, I don't get it. I think the problem is that it may be that too many women look at Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and the rest of them, and I think I'm afraid that too many women maybe start drawing generalities, about all of this. And I'm here to say I'd like to think that's not true. I have no defense for these. There is no defense for what these guys get. They're horrible. And but I want you to know, all of you, being that most of you are women in here tonight, as a man, I can't identify with any of this at all. So, well, let's go move on to Friday's disappearance. The disappearance of David Hardy Jr. from Alexandria, Louisiana on July 8th, 2017. The guest will be his daughter, Linda Freeman. And this episode is being entitled Frame of Mind. And the reason is because this is, I find it almost hard to believe, but it's true, that this is going to be the first disappearance we've covered on Unfound where dementia and or Alzheimer's is a part of the disappearance. Now, we, of course, all know, being that I know we all look at true crime news and missing persons news, how many people with Alzheimer's or dementia go missing. They walk off or they're in a car. And it's just amazing. It took us about 170 disappearances to finally cover one of these kinds of disappearances. But that will be this Friday. David was diagnosed in approximately 2015 with Alzheimer's, the beginning stages. Although he continued to go to work 5 days a week, he had a job even at 78 years old. And yes, David will be the oldest missing person we've featured on Unfound. I think to this point it was, I know who number one was. Let me check it here. I don't want to get it wrong. But let me find it. Where is he? Hold on one second. The previous oldest person was Jack Hemby, missing from Rio Doce Downs in New Mexico in 2011. He was 76. David is 78. But he seemed to be doing okay, even though once in a while when he would go out, he would get lost, and the police would find him and bring him home. Well, that's what happened this time. That he had gone out to the store and didn't come back. Well, he was located like an hour and a half away. The police brought him home, left his car in Alexandria, brought him home, and then the next day, he and his son drove back to Alexandria to get his car, and the instructions were that David was supposed to follow his son back to Eunice, Louisiana, about an hour and a half away. As soon as they were getting out of Alexandria, they were on a highway. David took an exit that he shouldn't have. His son saw that it happened, tried to do a U-turn to find his father, could not find him. David disappeared. His car was later found in Elizabeth, Louisiana, which is nowhere near Alexandria. And the car, which was a Mustang, was out of gas. And a witness, it'll be up to you whether you want to believe this or not, a witness says that David Hardy was a black man, African American, but the witness says that a white man left the car where it was found. So that is the disappearance for this Friday. It's the disappearance of David Hardy Jr. His case is on Charlie Project. It is on NamUs. There's both a page and a group that I've linked to already on Facebook. Alexandria, Louisiana, July 8th, 2017. The name of the episode is Frame of Mind, and his daughter, Linda, will be the guest. She did a great job. Great interview with Linda. Like Linda a lot. And I know Emily was just talking about her earlier in the discussion. Linda is a very easy person to like. Really, really like her a lot. But that's it for today. What did we do? We talked about my ace yesterday from disc golf. We talked about the April Andrews poll. We talked about my speaking stuff in colleges coming up. Andrea Bowman, Austin Pivo. Next Friday, Crystal Morrison, In Memoriam, KETK. Mention giving a link to the Kimberly Norwood episode. We talked about Molly Miller, Colt Haynes, and the show on Oxygen, whether it was good or not. I did treaded lightly on the topic of the coronavirus. Talked about the Boston Transit Authority, talking about how they're going through their most nonviolent era of their existence. Talked about Harvey Weinstein. Took questions from Antonia, Lisa, Tanya, and Talia. And like always, I finished up with this coming Friday's case, and that is David Hardy Jr. From Alexandria, Louisiana, July 8th, 2017. That's it. I'm going to say goodnight. An hour and 40 minutes again. To my knowledge, I'm the only podcast host out there that does this. Does a show and then does a live show as well, so I can interact with at least some of the listeners. I love doing it. Only person who does that. Weekly. Love it. I don't know why more people hosts don't do it. I don't know what to tell you. But I'm going to leave you now. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Great show. Thank you for all the questions, comments, everything. Good night.